did not have the microphone on. Councilwoman Perot?
Yes.
Councilman Borton?
Here.
Councilman Hoagland?
Here.
Mayor Simison?
Here. Next item up is the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Hoagland.
on the agenda, we're going to vacate items number 6 and number 13 from today's agenda. So with those items vacated, I move adoption of the agenda as amended.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. Next up is the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Hoagland.
we have removed item 6 from the consent agenda, so I move approval of the consent agenda as amended and for the mayor to sign and clerk to attest.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the consent agenda is agreed to. There were no items moved from the consent agenda, so we'll go on to department commission reports. Item 13 was vacated, so we'll move on to item 14, which is the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council for their bi-monthly update. And I'll turn this over to Sahan for introductions.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, thank you so much for making the time for us to attend your workshop and share some information about MIAC. It is my pleasure to introduce 2 of the seniors on our Executive Council, Isabella Deckelman and Valeria Avila Orozco, who will talk a little bit about what MIAC has been up to since the beginning of the summer and what they're planning to do in the months ahead.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, thank you so much for having us today. My name is Isabella. I am the current chair of MIAC this year, and I am a senior at Renaissance.
Hi, my name is Valeria Avila, and I am also a senior at Renaissance, and I'm currently the communications coordinator for MIAC.
And during our presentation, we're just going to give a brief overview of what MIAC has been doing from June through October. So beginning with government affairs.
So we had Chris Johnson as our first guest speaker, and it was an absolute blast because a lot of our general council MIACers don't know much about what the city clerk does. And so we got to learn about his everyday activities that he does as the city clerk and how much he actually does for our city. We also did this at our last MIAC meeting. So with elections coming up and also in general, high school seniors are turning 18, we decided to hand out flyers just informing everyone in the community that if you turn 18, you are able to register to vote. And so we handed out these flyers during our meeting, and our general council members will be putting these flyers in schools, libraries, club meetings, anywhere they see fit with the permission of the establishment. We have also continued this activity from last year. It's the My Meridian Kahoot quizzes from the podcast that the mayor does with our government officials. And we use this as a way to have our general council learn more about the government of Meridian, because there's so much to learn about the government, and these podcasts allow our general council to learn about it, and it gives them a fun incentive that we do a Kahoot every meeting.
And then now moving on to community service. One of the first events that we had to start off our year for MIAC was the Sensi Rockathon, which is an event that we participated in last year as well. This happened on September 8th. So MIACers during this event rocked in rocking chairs alongside Eagle Road to help raise money for the Idaho Youth Ranch. So this consisted of us holding up signs and then cheering on people who were coming by. The event in total, out of all the people who came, was able to raise $260,000 for the Idaho Youth Ranch, and MIAC was super grateful to be a part of it. And then alongside that, we've also done the Walk to End Alzheimer's, which is an annual event that we participate in. This happened on September 30th. So during this event, MIACers were tasked with cheering on the participants and then also guiding them along the walk path. So this year, the event was a huge success. It had 744 total participants, and it was able to raise $196,000 for the Alzheimer's Association. And then most recently at our general council meeting yesterday, we did decorating for trunk or treat and holiday helpers. So trunk or treat is something that's happening at Meridian City Hall on Thursday. So MIAC is having a booth at that. So general council members were tasked with making decorations for our photo booth that we're going to be having. And then alongside that, we're also doing holiday helpers with the association, the United Way. And during that, we're also doing a photo prop with that. So MIACers were helping to build a snowman and such for that.
Now moving on to our leadership development. So we had the Treasure Valley Youth Safety Summit. We have participated in this event last year again, and MIAC, we were able to help run the event by helping people sign in. And we also were able to participate in the event and learning a lot about what issues happen with drunk driving and how you shouldn't text and drive and many issues like that. We had a very important speaker there, Natalie Marty, who had a powerful story about her experience with a drunk driver, and it truly motivated a lot of people. And you could tell that people actually learned a lot from that experience and how they shouldn't be drunk while driving. We also had AIC. This was just for executive council members of MIAC. 5 of our members attended, and it is an amazing opportunity where we were able to get to know each other better, and it helps us communicate and coordinate better as executive council for our MIAC members. And through this, we were able to do a community service project and also meet with other executive councils from around Idaho and know what they do at their MIACs and what works well, and incorporate that into our own meetings.
And then the next thing we have up is we have some more upcoming events and other events that we've done through MIAC. So one of our upcoming events, like I mentioned previously, we have Trunk or Treat that's happening on October 26th, this Thursday at Meridian City Hall, where we're going to be doing a photo booth. At our next general council meeting on November 6th, we are really excited because we are able to secure Dr. Bubb, the superintendent of the West Ada School District, to come in as a guest speaker during this meeting and talk a little bit about leadership development, one of our main pillars of MIAC. On November 7th, we are going to be doing the Holiday Helpers with the United Way of Treasure Valley. And on the 11th, we have Rake Up Meridian, an annual event that MIAC participates in to help those rake up their lawns who are unable to do so. On December 6th, we are hoping to do a legislative panel as part of our meeting. And then also in December, we're going to do our annual volunteering at the Idaho Botanical Gardens. And then upcoming in the spring, we are planning to do a voter registration drive. We also have Mad City Money, an event that we do annually to teach MIACers more about financial responsibility. And then we also have #DoTheRightDay and then Senior Prom as well, which is an event that we put on every year and something that actually won us an award at the Association of Idaho Cities conference this year. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, ladies. Council, any questions or comments? And I know we don't have Councilman Kavanagh here, who's normally our MIAC individual. So Councilman Hoagland, any comments?
I would, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I was just kind of curious. It's your senior year and we're going to head into the holidays, and next thing you know, it's springtime and you guys are getting ready and looking at other adventures. What has MIAC kind of taught you so far that I don't know if it was surprising, but something you've gained from being in a leadership role, first of all, but also just learning more about your community? Is there anything that stands out?
Yeah, so I have been with MIAC since my sophomore year, and I think MIAC has taught me so much how to communicate with people. It not only like you have to get out of your shell to meet new MIAC members, but also learning and meeting with the mayor when he's there at meetings, and even just talking to Sahand, you get to talk to adults that you think are in power, and it teaches you how to learn. MIAC teaches you how to speak to those individuals and also like gain the confidence to speak to them.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think it's helped improve my communication and being a leader. Presenting in front of city council is something that I never would have thought of doing sophomore year. So it's a really great experience. And I think MIAC has also provided me with the opportunity to get involved with my community. I think being a teenager, it's definitely difficult to get involved with your community as you're often limited by your age. But I think MIAC has definitely given me a way to do so and offered me a platform to be able to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
thank you for everything you do. In fact, everyone on my act. I think you realize by now that when you do all these different events and fundraisers, that if it wasn't for folks like you, many of these things would never happen. So not just a thank you to you, but everybody who helps you make this work. And that's what's good about our community, whether it's an Alzheimer's walk, whether it's rocking chair. Folks like you are what makes those happen and makes them successful. I didn't hear in your list of things coming up, and maybe it's because they're past. Do you still work with the Meridian Anti-Drug Coalition, MADC?
Yes, we do. So the Meridian Anti-Drug Coalition was at our Treasure Valley Youth Safety Summit that we did. So we have them there. And then in the last year, we actually participated with them too. They provided some money for MIAC to like put on an event to inform students about the Meridian Anti-Drug Coalition.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I know we've got an unfortunate situation coming up with a lot of Monday conflicts with holidays and whatnot. So we're really trying to work through that through the semester. I know it can be a challenge, but I know you guys will find a way to get everything organized and move everyone forward and get them involved. So thank you. Okay, next item up is Emergency Housing Assistance Grant update from Jesse Tree. And Emily online. So Allie's not online or in the audience. I don't know if we want to take a few minute break to see if if they're planning on coming or showing up. Mr. Borton.
Yeah, I think they were. Maybe just a quick break.
Okay.
If she's not there, she's probably close.
All right, let's take a up to 10-minute recess, but maybe we'll keep our cameras on in case we can come back sooner.
Okay.
Thanks. I'm gonna wait for Councilman Hoagland to come back in. All right, council, we will go ahead and come back from recess and we will continue on with item 15, which is the emergency housing assistance grant update from Jesse Tree. I'll invite Ally and Evan up to the podium.
Mayor and Council, my name is Ally Robbie. I'm the Executive Director at Jesse Tree.
My name's Evan Stewart, the Program Director at Jesse Tree.
And just want to apologize for us being late. We saw ourselves being last on the agenda. So also took us an hour to get here from Boise. So apologize for that. But thank you for making the time to have us present here. You all made a really significant investment into keeping people housed in the city of Meridian. And we think it's important for us to report back on how that went and what we accomplished with the funding that you provided our agency. Did provide a handout, and I will email that to Daniel after this for distribution. But the first page is just highlighting some of the accomplishments that we reached with the funding. The second page is the number of applications for emergency rental assistance we're receiving from renters in Meridian who are being evicted by month. And the last page is the amount of financial assistance we're providing to residents in the city of Meridian by month as well. What we're going to talk about today is just what we applied for with the grant, what we accomplished with the grant. We'll share a couple of client stories and then just talk to you about what we're seeing in Meridian right now. So as many of you know, Jesse Tree is an eviction prevention agency that provides one-time emergency rental assistance and supportive services to renters who are being evicted. We have been around for 25 years and more recently have definitely been more active and growing to meet the growing need for our services, just with rent having increased by 40% here locally over the last few years. In light of the issues around eviction and a lot of renters, facing issues on being unable to pay their rent, I believe the City of Meridian released the emergency housing assistance RFP last fall. Jesse Tree applied for and received that funding for $250,000. In our grant, we projected to serve 120 families from Meridian who were being evicted with emergency rental assistance. And all of the funding we applied for is committed for use with emergency rent, while we were committed to using separate funding to provide case management services and support services. As we mentioned in our application, emergency rental assistance at the time of application was a great need, as COVID era funds for rental assistance were set to expire. We were at risk of reducing our services for renters in Meridian by 75% from about 40, from 10 to much less than that. And the grant funding allowed us to sustain the level of services we were provided to renters residing in Meridian from last year through this year. So I'm going to let Evan talk about what we accomplished with the grant.
Yeah, so let me just over a 10-month period, Jesse Tree administered $250,000 to 95 client households. The number of households served was 25 less than committed in our grant application, mostly due to our organization encountering more tenants with larger sums of rent owed than anticipated. On average, each household was provided with $2,631 in emergency rental assistance funding. Every household served was under the 80% area median income, which is roughly 4,754 monthly income for a household of two. However, the majority of households served were under the 30% area median income, which is $1,783 of monthly income for a household of two. Jesse Tree, basically the way we work is we operate like an emergency room in a hospital. So we triage cases based on the level of need and urgency. The tenants served were all in urgent situations and at high risk of eviction and homelessness if they were not to receive any services at all. Every household was in the legal eviction process primarily for non-payment of rent. That's the trend that we're seeing for the reason why people are at risk of losing their housing. So they all received a 3-day notice from their landlord, or we assisted them directly in eviction court to prevent that going on their record. Each tenant household gets assigned to an experienced Jesse Tree case manager. All of our case managers are trained in social work, conflict resolution, budgeting. So every household that receives case management services gets budgeting help. So we look pretty deeply into what their current spending habits are, good advice into their projected months moving forward in terms of reducing some of those expenses for other bills that they have, or just best practices to try to help prioritize their need over anything else in terms of housing. Yeah, we also get all the case managers are trained in all the different resources in the community. So we get people connected to different resources, and we tailor housing stability plans for short-term, long-term goals towards gaining more housing sustainability moving forward. Jesse Tree does serve additional Meridian clients with private and other grant funding as well. So some of that funding is through the Meridian CDBG program, but also the Campaign to End Family Homelessness here in Ada County, which is run through more of a public-private partnership seeking to end family homelessness in Ada County. And that's in collaboration with Our Path Home. And a majority of private funding comes from individual donors within our community. Overall, so our organization did support 179 households with case management services. All those families and households were at risk of being evicted in Meridian this year. Of the 179 households that were served, Jesse Tree was able to help 62 of those households self-resolve without any direct financial assistance from Jesse Tree. And that's really where a lot of that case management comes into practice. And of the 179 households, 117 did receive direct financial assistance from Jesse Tree, which gets paid to the landlord. It's strictly for rental assistance to prevent an eviction or from people losing their rentals. And of course, 95 of those out of the 117 were supported through the ARPA project, through the Emergency Housing Assistance project from Meridian. And on average, we're assisting about 15 households each month from the city of Meridian. Oh, sure. So I can go ahead and share our first client story. So we have two of them. This household was directly assisted through the Meridian Emergency Housing Assistance through the ARPA project. So I'll go ahead and read off the story. James is a Meridian client whom we have worked with through our community health program at Jesse Tree. When James's partner unexpectedly moved out of their apartment this summer, he was left with the full rent to cover. Jesse Tree was able to provide emergency rental assistance to keep James housed during this difficult transition. His case manager recognized that he was uninsured and assisted in navigating community resources, and also assisted James with applying for Medicaid. Shortly after this, James suffered an injury which led to 2 hernias. James is resilient, but because of the physical nature of his work and his jobs, he was not given, his hours were cut as a result of the injury. James has been working with our staff to gain access to Medicaid, but he has been delayed due to his employer not completing the work verification form that's required for Medicaid. Our staff member who is working with James reached out to contacts at Health and Welfare to troubleshoot this issue so that he can gain insurance coverage and receive the medical care needed to recover from his injury and return to work. Our staff members also provided concrete resources to help with food, gas, and hygiene items, and also provided direct referrals to agencies such as LADA to help with any sort of utility assistance, and also the West Ada School District, because James is a single parent. Jesse Tree's case manager has provided support and helped his client maintain his housing and his hope through a challenging time.
And I'm just going to share one more and then kind of talk about what we're seeing in Meridian moving forward currently in this market. So Jill is another single parent. We serve a lot of single parent households, but she parents a 17-year-old son. She owns her RV, but was renting a space in an RV park here in Meridian. While living in her RV was not her ideal housing situation, she was grateful to have it to fall back on when her previous housing situation fell through due to ongoing rent increases that surpassed her income. Jill has a permanent disability and her only source of income was SSDI, giving her about $300 to live off of after paying for rent. So Jill was also recently widowed, part of what led her to living in the RV. She lost her husband during the pandemic due to health issues, and covering bills after her husband's death. Moving and increasing cost of living caused her to fall behind in her lot rent where she was living with in her RV. We were able to catch her up on the past due rent and a utility balance that was paid so she could catch up on her other bills, which included school expenses for her son, paying for groceries, paying for other, essential expenses that she was facing. So just a couple of stories of many. We also provided photos of a couple of our clients and the handout that we provided and another client there that we served in eviction court. So just want to put a face to the funding. We say 95 families, but you think about what those families were going through and the ripple effects that our support had for them to be able to stay in their homes, not only for them, but for their children, being able to have a stable place and not end up on the street or elsewhere. It's just means a lot to each person, each family that we serve. So moving forward, this funding was a really great resource. We just continue to be concerned about what need will look like moving forward. And we, while we have other private resources and we do try to fundraise as much as possible, Emma mentioned we're serving about 15 families just using private funding and other funding each month from Meridian, and about up to 100 families total in the Treasure Valley. We don't have the capacity to sustain the level of need that we are seeing. We do continue to see increased need. As mentioned, through the pandemic, and there was a drastic rent increase in our area, there were federal housing funds available that were passed through the pandemic. And while we saw that rent increase, which was this kind of a safety net for a lot of folks, but recently, with our funds timing out last year, and now more recently, some additional funds timing out with the Boise City Ada County Housing Authority, we do see increased need here in Meridian and across Ada County. So currently we're seeing about 70 applications each month from residents in the city of Meridian. All of those applications each month, 70 folks are in the legal eviction process. So they have received a 3-day notice from their landlord or they're in eviction court. In 2022, when we last spoke with you, and even earlier this year, the number of applications we were seeing was closer to 20 to 40 applications each month. Even close, just a couple of months ago, we were seeing more like 50 applications. And you can see that in your handout. So that more 70 number has been consistent for 2 months since we're seeing the effects of the federal funding from the Housing Authority timing out, kind of the effect of that on folks. We're also seeing about 50 eviction hearings in Ada County each week. Majority of those are happening to Boise residents, but we are seeing a good number of Meridian residents there in court as well. Previously, while now we're seeing 50 hearings a week consistently in Ada County, even just a few months ago, that number was closer to 20 to 30 pretty consistently. So, so we are seeing increased need, especially over the last couple of months, and we will happy to continue to update council on what we see through the end of the year. So just wanted to mention that we are going to continue to, try to raise as much funding as we can and partner with our Path Home and other funders across the valley to serve as many residents as we can here. Certainly this funding was great and allowed us to do a lot more than we would have been able to. And so thank you for allowing us to do that. I think it shows real foresight for the city to invest in an intervention like eviction prevention, just as we're seeing across the country. Eviction is a real problem, and oftentimes homelessness is a direct result of that. Especially because when you get an eviction, you have that permanently on your record. It makes it really difficult to find new housing permanently. And so I think that this was a really good investment. On average, Evan mentioned it costs us just over $2,000 to keep a family in their home. And we know from our partnership, it costs $15,000 to get someone out of homelessness after they've fallen into that situation. And so it's a good financial investment that you all made. I think saving the city funding and obviously keeping a lot of your residents in housed situations through a difficult time over the last year. So thank you for that and your partnership. We really appreciate it, and happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Council, any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Strader.
thanks for being here. Couple questions. I was curious if you've seen any hotspots where there were multiple evictions in one apartment complex. The reason I ask is we had some situations in Boise where people were told to like move out with like 3 days advance notice. And, the landowner in that case said that they had to make repairs and people were really left scrambling. And I just also was noticing that your spending by month looks kind of seasonal, or looks like it spiked a lot in July and August. So that was the reason for the question.
Yeah, off the top of our head, we can't think of any mass evictions that happened in Meridian. Really saw quite a diversity of landlords that we were working with out here, and definitely diversity of in this types of situations we were seeing. We could provide you with the names of the landlords potentially that we paid, if that's something you'd be interested in. So
we do have data that we collect on different companies that take people to eviction court. We definitely see some routinely take them, weekly. I mean, we do collect all that data. I do have there's a few that I can kind of think of, but I would first like to maybe check the data first. I don't want to go on the record and say anything, but we do collect that data, have that information.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Strader.
Yeah, what more of an area of concern if you saw like something specific, I think that was widespread. Doesn't sound like that's the case. You kind of mentioned a couple of these cases that were examples like James and Jill. And I appreciate a lot about what your organization is trying to do is help somebody get back on their feet so they can support themselves and not become a burden on the taxpayers. can you just kind of walk us through, like, what does a housing sustainability plan look like for one of these examples? You mentioned helping them with budgeting, helping them kind of get on their feet, but how do you sort of help them going forward to support themselves?
Yeah, so our case managers do take quite a bit of time working with clients. It's kind of a group effort, team effort between the household and the case manager. But routinely, we collect information. We want to know kind of what the situation is. What are their goals? What are their interests? What are things that can be done to help a client pursue those goals, but also trying to increase, their income. So we come up with a lot of different best practices in terms of, what people can do in a pinch to, increase some of their income, steps on how to ask your employer for, a raise, or asking for more hours, overtime, which is not everybody knows how to do that. It's kind of people are usually a little afraid to do that, but we do try to give some of the best advice in terms of that. Mostly we get some training from people from the banking world where they have taught a lot of our case managers some of these different things, how to really identify sort of like your needs versus your wants in terms of budgeting skills and how to do that. So we always go over basically the most previous or current month's budget, so we can ask for like bank statements. We can go through that. The goal is to project moving forward what sort of expenses can be reduced to kind of put somebody in the black, so that they, have some income moving forward where they can cover their utilities, their rent, but also to prioritize, goals for children that they might have. But really it's adding, as many different resources that are tailored towards this person's goal. There's a lot of different agencies that can provide different services outside of our scope of work, in terms of childcare, in terms of different counseling. We work with clients who have never seen a doctor before. Maybe it's been numerous years. So we can help navigate that landscape. We do have a community health worker on staff too, who works with people a little bit more long-term for some of those healthcare goals. We mostly, also can send direct referrals as well. But really our case managers are asking people really what their short-term goals are, what's their long-term goals. We work on different steps and then do follow-ups to check in on how people are doing, because our goal is for people not to return anytime soon. We do stick to that, one-time assistance, at least in terms of financial assistance, but case management that can go, a little bit further than the financial assistance piece, because the eviction process moves really fast. And so that's something that we try to alleviate or help the client overcome. But our goal is to, try to at least help with some of the more supportive services. And our goal has always been to really improve the quality of that, because right now there's really no other agencies that can provide any sort of, short-term or long-term rental assistance or subsidies. We're kind of it now in the community, which we help people in both Ada and Canyon County. Our volume's gone up so much with a lot of these other programs not really available. So really our goal is just to really hone in on our case management quality skills, the supportive services, because, we don't have enough financial assets to pay everybody's rent.
Just want to say, add, if I may, the goal, with the emergency rental assistance really helps us get them through that immediate eviction, but then the case management is really tailored at making sure, they don't fall into that situation again. And do you want to answer your other question about the increased spending July, August, super quick? That's when the Boise City Ada County Housing Authority funding ran out. So we started to see increased applications around that time from residents in Meridian. Also just increased need we do see in the summertime with families having more issues, challenges with childcare, with school being out. So.
Councilwoman Schrader, did you have another follow-up?
Oh, just a comment. I appreciate that context. I mean, I think it's really, um, I like your process and how you're trying to support somebody who might have multiple things going on to help them get on their feet again. That financial education component is so important. You know, it's a huge blind spot, has been for years. I appreciate that now our schools are going to be providing financial education going forward because, you know, people have something happen to them and then they can get overwhelmed. And if they don't have that understanding of how to budget, it can just be really difficult for them. So I like that you're helping give people the skills to get out of the mess that they're in. So I appreciate you kind of providing these examples because I think it helps paint a picture of where the resources are going.
Councilman Pro.
Thank you. Good to see you both. Really appreciate you sharing all of this information, all these stats with us. It's a heartbreaking conversations to have, and I'm so grateful that that you have counselors that folks can call because you know, when there's nowhere for people to turn, and the housing being a very basic need, folks tend to maybe not make the best choices in those circumstances because it's frightening and it truly is an emergency. So I appreciate that you don't leave them with just paying for a couple months rent and not help them move forward. So I just have a couple of quick questions about the numbers that you shared. First, my first question is there a specific than another and or a certain maybe demographic, and if you're allowed to share that, I don't know if there's privacy restrictions on that, and then also how many folks are making repeat requests? I think I heard you say that they only are allowed to utilize the benefits one time, but I'm curious if you see a lot of folks coming back within, you know, maybe a 1 to 2 year period.
Sure, I can answer that. So the demographics that we're seeing, I think, matches national trends in terms of homelessness prevention and eviction prevention. Mostly we're seeing single parents, single female head of household parents, people who also self-report having a disabling condition is pretty common for us, and people who are on the more fixed income, people who are at that 30% area median income and below as well. It's I think matches a lot of national trends that are out there too. In terms of repeat people, we definitely see people calling more just because there's not a lot of other agencies out there that can provide the level of services that Jesse Tree can. Our volumes skyrocketed to, we're getting over 3,000 calls a month. We're seeing more applications being submitted as well. But yeah, I mean, we'll see people, maybe we've helped them a year ago, reapply the next year. But yeah, we're definitely seeing people reaching out for additional services as well.
I'll just add that though we don't always provide repeat clients with financial assistance. We do try to provide them with supportive services to kind of help them navigate the situation. We also do share data with the homeless shelters here locally and our Path Home Connect, which collects data on everyone who is experiencing homelessness in Ada County. And we know that of the thousands of clients we've served since 2018, only 5% of them have gone to the shelters. So even though some people do call back for resources, problem solving, sometimes financial assistance, a lot of those folks are not actually ending up in our homeless system, which is promising. So.
Okay. Thank you. Council, any additional questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Borton.
I will just briefly comment. I love it. I'm so happy for this. And hearing this data, I knew you guys would knock it out of the park. The holistic approach that you presented in your RFP response, you've done just that. And I think a lot of the success you're reporting to us is due to that. It's not just rental assistance. This self-resolution statistic is fantastic. There's just so many success stories. We do a lot of things at the city on a macro level, but this really hits at the micro and the individual families, and you make such a lasting change. I'm just proud of you both and your whole organization. Jesse Tree killed it. I love it. So I'm just happy. I don't have any questions. I just love to hear the great results, and you've made a lifelong difference in a lot of Meridian families. And when we talked about this idea, and I was kind of pushy about it, focusing on trying to keep some Meridian families in Meridian, giving them a chance to be successful and stay in our community. And you've done that. And as elected leaders in the city, I think that's a big part of our focus, and you've helped them so much. So I'm just proud of you both, and to Jesse Tree, and thank you for the great work and great report.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
With that, we are at the end of our meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Motion adjourned. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.